Metal Jesus here, and I'm back again with another fun video I've been looking forward to doing for a while now, and that is talking about some of the more weird and kind of unusual and definitely awesome controllers I have in my collection, including this one. Just look how bizarre this thing is. All right, let's get started with the controller I showed in the beginning. Now, this is a Gemini PlayStation 2 controller here. Really awesome looking. It's part of the Freak series, and this is called the Fleshy controller. And as you can see, it's kind of, well, it's definitely horror related, and it looks almost like it's handcrafted or molded. It's made of plastic, actually, and it functions perfectly as a normal controller. But it's pretty disgusting. Like, it's got these two guys on the handle here, and you see the brain in the center. You flip it over and you can see where the skin is being sewn up. It's definitely really cool, including the plug at the end is even like molded and sculpted. So when I saw this in Pink Gorilla here in Seattle, I just knew I had to have it because it's so weird and bizarre looking. This next controller is actually pretty cool. It's by Namco, and it's called the Jogcon. Now, this is a racing controller for the original PlayStation 1. Now, what's really cool about it is that it has this steering dial in the center here, and it's force feedback. It actually has like a little motor in there, and if the game is programmed to take advantage of it, it actually fights you as you try to drive. Now, originally this was designed for Ridge Racer 4, which of course was made by Namco. But the cool thing is it's also supported by Ridge Racer 5 on the PlayStation 2. So there's two games that I know of that support it. It'd be kind of cool if more of them supported it, but you know, for whatever reason, it just never took off. But it's definitely pretty cool because, you know, force feedback is actually pretty prevalent on the PC side of things. But this is one of the first that I knew about on consoles, and it's pretty cool to have in my collection. This next controller was sent to me many years ago when the PlayStation 2 was out, and it's by Nyko, and it's called the iType 2. Now, this was designed to go with SOCOM and playing online. And basically what it is, it's a PlayStation 2 controller, but with a full built-in keyboard. Because again, at the time, playing online and doing multiplayer games on the PlayStation 2 was kind of new. A lot of people wanted to chat, and the best way to type was with a keyboard, and this was the best way to do it. So a pretty interesting controller that, you know, never really caught on. Now, I know the Xbox 360 has an attachment for its controller to add a keyboard, but this one is pretty cool. It's built in, so definitely kind of unusual. You don't see it very often. This next controller is also for the PlayStation 2. I found it at a pawn shop. Pretty rad. It's called the Gamester. Now, this is a pretty cool controller because it's designed for first-person shooters. And I actually played this with Time Splitters, and it actually plays really well. Now, a couple really cool things about this. One, it's designed to be two guns, and it feels very comfortable. But you'll also notice that some of the buttons have been remapped to the sides. So again, it's meant to be kind of held like a gun, but then you click with your two fingers like this, and then you have the thumbsticks up above. Another really cool feature about it is that the screen actually animates. So when it's plugged in and turned on, it actually animates. And more than just that, it's useful because you can program it. So there's a bunch of presets here. You can change it up. A very awesome controller. The only downside, if you're going to collect for this, is that unfortunately these buttons here often break. The springs are really weak in it. So if you get one that doesn't work, you just have to replace or repair the springs. But definitely one of the coolest looking controllers in my collection. This next controller is one of the more interesting in my collection. And at first glance, you're like, what the hell is this? I mean, how do you use this? Well, this is the Madcatz racing wheel for the PlayStation 2. And surprisingly, it's really comfortable. Now, you kind of slide your left hand in here, and it's perfectly molded to it. And then you put your right hand here, and it's a self-centering kind of jog wheel, and that's steering right there. And I was playing Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 on the PS2 a couple days ago, just testing this out. And it works really well. I mean, you can really kind of dial in and get very specific with this. But more than that, all the buttons are really high quality. Again, this is a really well-made joystick. Like for instance, this thumbstick right here goes in all directions. The buttons feel really solid. So it's definitely kind of a trippy controller, but I don't know, it's actually pretty cool. Now let's go back to 1983. And if you were like me, you were probably still rocking the Atari 2600 with those really short joystick cables. I mean, that thing was really short at the time. It would have been awesome to have this. This is a wireless Atari 2600 system here. This is the base station, and you can turn it on or off here, and you could raise the antenna. This is pretty hilarious. It's almost like a CB radio. I mean, talk about 80s, right? Sitting next to your TV, this would be hilarious. And then here's the joystick. Again, with the wireless antenna. This is the antenna sticking out here. Your power button, your fire buttons here, and then your 9-volt battery would go right here. This was definitely like way ahead of its time and pretty advanced for the Atari. So a very cool addition. Next up is a controller that not a lot of people remember, and that is the official Arkanoid controller for the original Nintendo. Now, if you played Arkanoid back in the day on the original Nintendo with the original controllers, it was actually pretty hard because it was like digital. So it was very hard to control the paddle. Well, this thing is flawless control. If you are a big fan of Arkanoid, this is a really awesome controller for that game. The only bummer is that, as far as I know, it only works for one game, and that is Arkanoid. So again, you have to be a huge fan of it like I am, but it's still very cool to own. For these last two controllers, we're going big. Now the thing is, if you're gonna talk about big, you gotta talk about the original Xbox. That thing was huge. And of course, the Duke controller, the original controller for that Xbox, was considered one of the biggest controllers of all time. Well, what's really funny is that this third party made the Power Pad, which is actually even bigger. And this is for the original Xbox. I don't know why they made this thing. It's so bizarre, but it's slightly bigger. So now the funny thing is that there's nothing really special about it. I mean, it's just a third-party controller, but actually I don't mind it at all. I'm a big guy, I got big hands, so this controller fits pretty well, for me. But anyways, I thought I would just show it because it's so ridiculous. And then finally, one of the biggest, most over-the-top controllers ever made, and that is, all right, let's get this thing here. Okay, all right, here we go. The Steel Battalion controller for the original Xbox. Now here's the deal with this thing. This thing was originally sold for around $200, and it has about 40 buttons. Now that includes 2 control sticks with your hands, as well as some pedals for your feet. There's like dials, there's flip switches. This thing is crazy. And the funny thing is, it only supports Steel Battalion. So this was made to emulate being in like a real mech, and it's pretty awesome. But when it's fully assembled, this thing is so huge. It basically takes up an entire desk. I mean, you really have to dedicate some space to it. As a matter of fact, Drunken Master Paul donated this to me because he didn't have room in his house. So, but you know what? I had to have it because it's just so freaking awesome. All right, well, that's a quick look at some of the more interesting and weird controllers in my collection. Now, there's one controller that I didn't mention because I just don't own it yet, but that is the Resident Evil Chainsaw controller that was made. It was very limited edition, and it's very collectible. So it's definitely one of the last controllers that I'm looking for in mine. If you have that controller, I'd love to know about it. What do you think? Does it play well? I mean, are you putting it on a mantle like a trophy? Because it's so freaking awesome. And if you have any other controllers that you think are neat and interesting that I should add to my collection, please post a comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. As always, I want to thank you for watching my channel, and thanks for subscribing. Take care. Well, if you like this video, or maybe you just like watching me dance, I'm a very good dancer. But if you like this video and you want to see more, well, please subscribe because I put out a new video every single week.